Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for Thursday, October 27th, Week 8 NFL breakdown. We got a lot to get to this week. Busy week around the league. Trade deadline looming. We're starting to see a little bit of action there. A lot of injuries. We got a couple of buys to navigate as well, with the Chiefs and Chargers both being off. So let's dig in. Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, John McKechnie, joined as always by Mario Puig. This podcast presented by our friends over at No House Advantage. Mario, how you doing on this Thursday?
Oh, I'm all right. How about you, John?
Well, the Ravens have. It looks like my video might be a little bit choppy. Sorry, folks. However, doing well otherwise. Ravens have a big game tonight, as you may have heard. Thursday Night Football. Heard of it?
Yeah.
Amazon Prime. We got
Love Amazon Prime.
we got Al, we got Herbie on the mic. So we're gonna go ahead and break down every single game this week, and we'll start things off with that game with the Ravens traveling down to Tampa Bay. Ravens 1.5 or 2 point favorites, depending on what book you're looking at. And Mario, for me, I need my Ravens to come through and get this victory here on Thursday night. It's their last go at Tom Brady. He's inflicted a lot of damage on the Ravens over years. I go on down Jimmy Seafood. I can't go Jimmy Seafood no more because I may or may not have brought in my own Natty Bow. They kicked me out of the establishment and then take my car in to Anthem Auto Parts, and I got to pay $800 for new brake pads because it said my car wasn't safe to drive. So all that's to say, I need the Ravens to come through here in a big way.
I understood the bill part of that. That sounded like a high price. Whatever happened, wish you luck. But yeah, I think I don't know. By the way, I'm looking at covers, and they have Tampa Bay by 1. So apparently, there's some depending on where you look, some different options to bet the spread here, but differing.
Oh, you are correct. Actually, that's my mistake. It was Ravens 1.5, so that has moved a good bit since Tuesday.
2 points, 1 point. I assume that can still go back and forth, especially if there was some kind of I don't know what the news would have been in week. Maybe Andrews officially not practicing all week sent some sort of quick spree of bets on the Buccaneers. I don't really know, but that I guess is the biggest story. Not to say it's the only one. There's a lot of stories here. I mean, if both teams were healthy, we'd still probably be talking about Tom Brady's divorce. Maybe that wedding of Robert Kraft's we could talk about. But more so, we have Mark Andrews and his stupid knee, Gus Edwards and his stupid knee, Rashad Bateman's stupid foot, and there's injuries on the Buccaneers defense. So it's like Marcus Williams is, of course, a huge absence for the Ravens. It's like that one alone took them from maybe like a pretty decent defense to one that you just pretty much sucks. And on the other side, they're without Carlton Davis, who's kind of their lead corner, Antoine Winfield, who's kind of does everything between the slot, roving, safety, whatever. He's a really good player. He's out. So there's shorthandedness on both sides. I don't know what that means on a short week. I mean, I guess we normally expect the passing games to do a little worse in the short week, especially in Lamar's case where your two most important pass catchers are both hobbled on a short week. So I don't know. It seems to me like it could be a little bit ugly, and I do worry about these games where it's just Lamar Jackson versus the other team. He has to win in spite of Greg Roman's play calling. Like he basically has to just go rogue to give them any chance sometimes in these settings. And the Buccaneers defense being shorthanded makes it an interesting question. It's not the same as the Buccaneers defense that we're afraid of. But it's still it just feels like it could be like a tipsy-turvy kind of topsy-turvy, whatever the term is. It seems like there might just kind of be marbles rolling around in this one. I don't know.
So with all that in mind, you take, the off-field stuff, obviously with Tampa Bay going on, but then you look at the fact that over these last 2 weeks, They were favored by 8 points at Pittsburgh. They lost that one. They
Yeah,
were favored by 10.5, I believe,
yeah,
against
that's bad.
Carolina. Went ahead, lost that one outright. So this,
That's bad. Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens obviously haven't been playing particularly well. They have a winning record, but they tried to give it away to the Browns this past weekend. Uh, were able to escape that one with a win despite their best efforts to the contrary. And we've seen them melt down in the past. And Tom Brady is not Jacoby Brissett, even current day Tom Brady. So I feel like the Ravens still haven't solved that closing question. So if they are to get a lead in this game, I think that this one is going to still go all 60 minutes. Like, I don't think that this one is going to be decidedly, emphatic on one side or the other if it's Tampa Bay or if it's the Ravens, just because how the Ravens play. And then, on the other side, I'm not sold right now that this iteration of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is capable of blowing anyone out.
Yeah, so I guess we're gonna have to see what happens with Julio Jones. I have no idea what to make of that. But Russell Gage is out, and Russell Gage, I don't know why they signed him to do this, but Russell Gage was playing most of the outside snaps opposite Mike Evans. Like they left Godwin in the slot, and they signed Gage to that contract, even though he was just a slot guy for the Falcons before. So he was ineffective outside. They should have seen that coming. He's out. I don't know if that actually hurts them because they might have to play either Julio, and in that case, you would, I guess, expect that he's somewhat healthy. If so, but if not Julio, then Brashad Perriman. So
Uh-oh.
basically, the Ravens have to not let that big play happen, and I do worry about that a little bit because you can imagine them putting Humphrey on Godwin in the slot, and like Peters don't. I don't think they have Peters switching sides. They could start even if they haven't done it already, but they might basically have a situation where it's like Peters with some help against Mike Evans and Marlon Humphrey on Godwin or whoever is in the slot between the two of them, and that could leave Perriman on. I don't know how Stevens is doing or whatever, but that Houston rookie corner they have just
You don't
is
like
an NFL
Pepe?
corner. Uh, what
Pepe Williams?
is that? Demarion or whatever.
Pepe, but yes.
Okay, I didn't realize his name was Pepe. But yeah, he's like that was just one of those bad picks, you know. If they leave Perriman on him, that's a wrap. So I assume it's going to be Stevens more so, but they can't have those plays that they had against the Dolphins happening because Perriman can run away from them. Other than that, they have to keep Fournette from getting too much going on the ground, and I think if they do those two things, Lamar can do his part on offense. But if they make Lamar score like 31 points, I don't know if that's happening.
No, I don't either. And I think with this one being a quick turnaround, obviously with it being a Thursday night game and the way that these offenses have performed, hello Dulce, of late, I think that there's a reason why the total is setting in, where it is, despite the fact that you have Lamar Jackson and Tom Brady playing. We're still looking at a total of 45.5, 46, depending on which book you're using. So yeah, we're not expecting a ton of offensive fireworks on either side. In your estimation, how has the Buccaneers' offensive line looked of late? Because I feel like if there's one kind of positive on the Ravens' defensive side thus far, and Calais Campbell is not going to be playing, so that is a big factor here. But I do feel like the Ravens were able to generate some pass rush against the Browns in a way that we hadn't really seen a whole lot of thus far.
Um, yeah, I mean, what would you say that was just like Metabuiki getting going, or what? Because I still don't see the personnel so much with the Rave. I guess until or if Owe gets going, I just
Owe
don't.
gets in the mix, but he never finishes the play. Like,
Right.
and then he seems to be good for one really costly penalty per game as well.
Hmm. Well, the Buccaneers are without their backup left guard, so they're down to their third string left guard, and they were already down to their second string center as it was. So I also don't know. Shaq Mason might be playing a little bit hurt, so those tackles should still be very good unless I missed something. And I guess Matabuiki is the guy you fear most in that front seven, front four, whatever front they're running, and he is more on the interior where Gedeke, the backup left guard, the rookie from Central Michigan, uh, who was the backup as it was to Aaron Stinney or whatever it was. So they're gonna have some third stringer against Matabuiki, and I don't know. Has Travis Jones done anything? I know he's really toolsy, so I'm kind of expecting him to be useful eventually, but maybe not quite yet. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, he was injured, in that
Right.
Cardinals preseason game, so it took him a little bit to get going. But he's been healthy, he's been out there, he's looked pretty good. Matabike, like you said,
Matabike,
I
sorry.
think he was a team captain this past week, so he's obviously like kind of like earning his keep and looking like he's a good pick. Broderick Washington getting in the mix just a little bit as well, but either way, that will be interesting to monitor like the left side of that Buccaneers offensive line. And then, from a fantasy angle, what if, Mark Andrews is to miss this game or what do you make of this Ravens backfield rotation, after Gus Edwards kind of surprisingly jumped into the mix and, scored a couple of touchdowns last week?
Yeah, I love Gus. I was surprised at how quickly they rolled him out and how much work they gave him, but uh, the box score that he had is actually the exact kind of thing I expect of Gus Edwards because in the event that Dobbins is out, I mean, that's the exact thing I would expect because every time they've had to call on Edwards as a starter, he's done a good job. He's just good, and I don't know why it's like some people don't believe that even now. Like 3 straight years of averaging 5+ yards a pop over that kind of sample size, it's not a fluke at that point. There's a reason he's so good, and those reasons apply whenever he's healthy. What I don't know is what's fair to expect on a short week coming off a game where they probably overworked him a bit, his first game back. And it's like, especially after they had it go the way they did with Dobbins, I'm not as inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like if that game happened and Dobbins was out right now with a shoulder injury, I'd maybe be like, oh, but they handled the knee all right, but they kind of just didn't. Maybe it's just unfair to call that in hindsight. I don't really know. But if they can't count on Edwards, then they have slack that basically Lamar can only pick up because I don't believe in Kenyon Drake at all. And Justice Hill, I don't know. He's better built for like the CFL or something.
He
I
was
think that
running well again last week and
yeah,
then he fumbled.
he can definitely run. I guess I should have been more specific. It's like he has a certain ability with the ball, but it's hard to in practice get it in an NFL offense reliably because he just doesn't have he can't really run inside very much. But he's also not a naturally skilled pass catcher, and he just doesn't have quite the burning speed you'd want for someone on his frame either. So it's like he's got that Ronnie Hillman problem where it's like yeah he's fast kind of, but for how small he is, it's barely worth it. But he does have some ability with the ball. He's not like easy to catch when he has the ball in the open field, whereas Drake, I guess, is usually.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It seems like the run game is a no go in this one to me because I don't really expect Gus to do it on a short week, and so it's up to Lamar, I guess. And um, I don't know how far along in decline Levante David might be, but Devin White has kind of been exposed in recent times as being just kind of a goofball on the field, and he's like outrageously athletic, like completely unfair athletic talent. But that's like the only reason he's a vaguely viable NFL linebacker. Like he just like runs the wrong way and gets tricked constantly.
Do you
So
think it's because he's a horse guy?
yes,
Okay, I do too.
I think it happened then. That not because he got kicked by the horse or fell off of it. It's just something about being a horse guy,
Yeah, no,
or
I mean,
girl.
yeah,
Um, those
it's
aren't
a thing.
normal. Yeah, so I think the run game's a no go, which is to say it falls on Lamar, and Lamar can sometimes take that and just go crazy with it, but it's also more pressure that way. It's a lot easier to go nuclear on it through the air and on the ground when you have a little help. When the defense doesn't really understand every single play as that guy's going with it because that's what we might have the game reduced to with Lamar here, especially if Andrews is out. With that said, there's also again the opportunity to get something going through the air, like no Carlton Davis, no Antoine Winfield, no Murphy Bunting either. So I don't actually know who the third or second even corner is. It's like Jamel Dean. That's it. So they're Duvernay should be overqualified against who's ever covering him. Bateman, especially if they just get him away from Dean, he's got the green light there. So I am a little bit optimistic that Lamar can get something going as a passer. even without Andrews. But as far as the DFS slate goes, the biggest thing with Andrews to keep in mind is even though Isaiah Likely's snap counts have gone down in recent weeks, it's almost entirely because the Ravens are just not running two tight end pass plays. They're running, well, some of those are probably running with Ricard, which is insane, but they're more so just running two tight end run plays. So Oliver is playing more, and Oliver is a blocking specialist tight end. So
Have you seen Josh Oliver try to catch a football?
not really.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, he can run,
It's
but he can't really
it's an
catch, I guess.
adventure. Every single, like, even if it's like right on his numbers, you don't know if he's coming down with it.
Right. So it's as simple as this. If the Ravens call a two tight end pass play, Likely is running that other tight end rep. They might not call that play, but that's the reason he hasn't been playing lately. It's not like Oliver's Wally pipped him or that Nick Boyle's taking his snaps. The snaps that existed before, the concept hasn't existed the past few weeks. But particularly if Andrews is out, Likely is the only guy who can run those routes. And not to
Yep.
say he's anything like it, but if Andrews is out, Likely runs 25 routes at least, and he might run 20 anyway, depending on whether they decide to use that personnel.
Yeah, I might fire up Likely in a couple places where I've held on, kept the faith. I think definitely if Andrews is sidelined, I think Likely starts to be more involved, and
Unless they do the thing with Gus Edwards last week that they did with Charlie Cola, but I don't think they're gonna do that. Or that'd be he's like out for the year, right? Or
yeah,
something.
he had that sports hernia.
Oh, well, he could be back in the second half, I guess, but probably not yet.
Okay, yeah, dang Charlie Kohler. Let's see here. Let's grab a couple of questions here and then move on to the Sunday slate. And then, final thing, you have a pick for tonight?
I'll go Ravens, but that's I'm just deferring to being a Lamar fan pretty much.
I got the shirt on.
You do have the shirt, yeah. Okay, I'm glad I had that. I call that the right answer. Then I'm glad I had the right
See,
answer.
facts. Yeah, you can't pick Tom Brady against the Ravens while I'm looking right at you. That would just be rude. Let's see. First question. I typically have the 49ers team or defense and special teams, but the Titans and Jets have been on the waiver wire. Should I drop San Francisco for either of those two? I think the Niners, I don't know if their injury problems are going to be fixed anytime soon, whereas the Titans, they go to the Texans this week. So stream-wise, might not be a bad play. I don't
I
know.
like the Colts this week too. I guess it just comes down to what kind of bench sizes you got in the league. Because yeah, those two defenses are this week and maybe until Armstead at least gets back for the 49ers. And I don't even know what's going on with him or Kinlaw. I do like the 49ers in general after this point, but you know, there's only whatever 12 weeks before the fantasy playoffs, and 1 out of 12 big upgrade at defense can pay off, especially if it's like a tight race.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you can somehow squeeze 12 points out of a defense that you just streamed, then I think that it could end up being a worthwhile play. And you also have to consider that the Niners have a bye next week as well. So I think that things are standing to reason to where you can stream off the Niners this week.
I'd still try to get them back, but yeah, if it's short bench, you might be able to do that.
Yeah, I think so as well. Y2J29 wants to know start two of the following: Christian Kirk, Curtis Samuel, George Pickens, or Wandale Robinson.
Man, who's that? Who's Pittsburgh again?
They have.
I'm
Oh
bye.
gosh, I'm forgetting. They're at Philly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not Pickens, and I think I'd go probably. What do I got here? I could probably go Kirk and what's his name? Wandale.
Okay, all right. So
I
we
love
we have.
Wandale. Maybe I'm too high on Wandale, but he's getting a lot of targets per snap, and he's a really fast starter at Nebraska too. So I think he's kind of for real.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that you look at the game setup, and yes, the Steelers are going to be trailing, so maybe they go to the air a little bit more. But in Robinson's case, that game out in Seattle could be the biggest shootout of the week.
Pickens might get Bradbury as a primary assignment, and that's a really tough one. In addition to who knows how quickly, like Quinn could already make an effect in the pass rush too, and they
Yeah,
didn't really
shout
need
shout
any.
out to the NFC for just like giving Philly all this ammo,
This
between
whole the
Bradbury and
entire
Quinn.
league this year is just doing like a cost cutting tank. It's unbelievable.
It's pretty gross. Aravila wants to know Gus or Michael Carter rest of season, half
Um,
PPR.
man, that's
Important
tough.
distinction when we're talking Gus.
I don't know. I mean, I really have no idea how to call that, honestly. I guess I'd lean Gus just because we don't really know what's going on with Dobbins exactly, whereas we kind of think James Robinson's playing as far as we know indefinitely. So I go Gus, I guess, but I'm maybe kind of putting it all on this next 4 or 5 week window or something.
Yeah, so I think if the Ravens had their druthers, they would give Gus the vast majority of the workload while
If Gus
Dobbins
gets
is
the
out.
carries, I love him. I have no concerns about Gus doing his part. It's the opportunity level, if anything.
Right, because I mean, again, for first game back, but the snap shares were split pretty evenly between Gus, Drake, and Justice Hill last week. Let's move on over to the Sunday slate, but before then, we got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. All right, Sunday, foggy London town, Mario. We are sending our best abroad, sending
All
our
right.
best overseas as the Jaguars will face the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, so sucks. What can you say? Yeah, so hopefully Russell Wilson's ready to go after doing jumping jacks and high knees and lunges and he probably like did wall squats on the emergency exit until someone told him to stop, something like that. He's a real goofball, and I don't know how this team manages to even get on the field sometimes. I guess we're gonna say it's the defensive coordinator. He's just like he's like running around the team facilities, turning on. You know how like George Michael in Arrested Development had to turn off the burners when Lindsay was going around trying to play mom in the house and almost got everybody killed. Like
Yeah.
whoever the defensive coordinator for the Broncos is doing that with Hackett, presumably like just he's probably like Hackett's going around springing like gas leaks and stuff and like exposing wires and stuff and that guy's keeping it all together, getting them to the games on time, all of that stuff. I don't know if going to London is going to affect them any differently, or I don't know if like maybe if you're completely disorganized joke of a team, going to London is fine because you're already like a knuckleball, like maybe the random factor doesn't actually change anything for them. I have no idea, but the Jags are certainly like a dumb enough team in their own right. They're uh, by the way, it's funny how little they got for James Robinson. Like they got less for James Robinson than they spent to draft Snoop Connor, who's I guess just gonna have to play a little bit now because Travis Etienne is not a 20 carry player. Like I'm as big of an Etienne fan as anyone. It's like you can't just have him carry your offense. That doesn't make any sense either. So the Jags might make things even weirder yet on themselves somehow. And the defensive coordinator for the Broncos is real good. So he's going to have something for Christian Kirk. The question is whether like Kirk and Trevor, and I guess to be fair, Doug, if Doug maybe comes up with a flicker of a good idea. Last week they started using Evan Ingram more downfield, which is good. It's the obvious thing. I don't know why it's taken 5 years, and I'm sure they'll just go back to doing the stupid things again this week. But why not have the 4-4-2 guy running? Let's say 7 yards downfield. Let's try 6 or 7 yards. See what happens. We don't have to do 4 and 5. We don't have to do 20. Let's try 7 or 8. Yeah, they got him going downfield a little bit, and like, what do you know? Fast guy, better downfield. Who could have imagined? So if they keep using Evan Ingram downfield more, they'll help themselves, and crucially, they'll be giving the defense something to think about in the same range of the field that Kirk runs. Like with Ingram used a certain way, you can make the defense if you catch them in the right spot, you make them make the choice. Let Kirk go or let Ingram go. And that's what Doug Peterson needs to fixate on. That's their offense because of how bad these outside receivers that Trent Baalke got are. Like Zay Jones is underqualified to be like a wide receiver too. Marvin Jones is not a real NFL receiver at this point. So the Kirk Ingram threat in the middle and the ETN threat are the only things the Jaguars have to play off of. So they can either get that going or they can lose.
Is there any concern about Pat Surtain and whatever his assignment ends up being?
Well, funny enough, Sertan might not have any real effect on this game. I mean, he's always going to play great. The calculus for the Jags offense, though, like I said, is like if they're using Zay Jones much, if they're using Marvin Jones and Zay Jones especially at the same time very much, they already lost. And Pat Sertan being there doesn't actually change that. It might make it more the case, but the Jags shouldn't be operating at that part of the field anyway. You know, some offenses need to get something going there, and then Pat Surtain throws their game off. But the Jaguars don't have any business working in that terrain anyway, so they got to get Kirk going, and maybe the Broncos unveil Surtain in the slot. That would be the way that it's specifically relating to Surtain, and presumably he would be good at that. They haven't really done it yet, but I don't exactly want to bet against Surtain playing any sort of coverage look. So yeah, but it also, they need big plays from ETN, which he probably can give them, but they can't have turnovers and they can't do this. They can't be like going for it on 4th and 1 at the 17-yard line and not getting it. They gotta get points when they can.
Yeah, a noted Jags fan, Nick Whalen, pointed out on Sunday that he is sick and tired of them going for it on fourth and not getting it.
Yeah, I appreciate the approach, but the Jaguars have certain personnel limitations because of Balky and his idiotic team building philosophy, if there is one. I guess he might just be like one of those random gut drafting guys. But the Jaguars need to understand that you need certain kind of equipment to do certain things, and they're not getting the equipment first.
No, yeah, so that the old cart before the horse type of
Yeah,
deal.
that's I was trying to think of it.
Couple of horse references on the pod this week. I don't know what's going on there. Do you have or before we get to a pick for this game on the Broncos side of it? I mean, how do you feel about I think like a ton has been made of Allen Robinson being super droppable and everything this year, but Cortland Sutton is someone that I was very high on. Again, under the premise that this Broncos team would be something other than a complete and utter disaster.
We
That
didn't take seriously enough the possibility that the Russell Wilson trade and contract will go down as the worst one in NFL history. We no longer have the Herschel
unbelievable.
Walker trade. We have the Russell Wilson trade.
Hmm.
Yeah, so uh, I think Sutton is blameless in this. I think it's all on Hackett, Russell Wilson to some extent. More on Hackett than Wilson, though. I mean, Wilson's overrated. He's a total fraud, etc. But Hackett by now has no good reason to not know what Pete Carroll knew for years, which is that you have to remove from your offense the plays where Russell Wilson is doing anything other than the high-low or a broken play structure. He can't operate within structure. And if you make an offense that supposes the quarterback operates within structure and your quarterback is Russell Wilson, you'll have a bad offense. It's predetermined. So Hackett could do things better than he has, and I don't think he's capable of doing anything right in any setting. So when he gets fired soon, something might change for the better. But they should what they really should do, and what actually might get them out of this hell they've built for themselves, is if they fire Hackett and make head coach the defensive coordinator guy, because that guy knows what he's doing. Just
He
give the
does.
team to him and understand that it's not great where you got yourself, but at this point, it's the best you can do.
It definitely is. I mean, this Hackett experiment has gone. I mean, I don't think either of us were optimistic. But man, I mean, this is
Not it's safe to say, John. Yeah, neither of us were. And yeah, again, I'm like, no way, dude, no way. How is any of this happening? Even if I saw these events unfolding at the time, I would have just like, back before the season, I would have just thought I was hallucinating and writing like an unfair, satire of events to come. But he really is just the absolute dumbest coach. Like he's not Urban Meyer is probably the worst coach ever because he was such a just malicious figure and like
yeah.
somehow just like he both like poisonous and neglectful. Like he's never present, but he's still like killing you from afar with his just like vileness. Hackett is an innocent goofball, man, but also he's the worst after Meyer ever.
Yeah, I mean, when you're entering the Petrino zone, that's not where you want to be, but that's where we're
Yeah,
at.
yeah. Hackett. I see that neck brace now, even though it's never there. It's just this is how much of a clown you've become in the head canon.
Inescapable. Let's keep rolling in that case. Then Jags -2.5.
Sure, I don't know. Sure.
I
Sure.
can't. I hate betting on both these teams,
I
but
need my Andre Cisco to sit on Poodle Boy's routes and pick 6-1, and then we might be talking.
then we're talking. Although that could complicate things for this perilously low over under of 39.5. But we shall see.
What can you do?
What can you do? All right. Falcons, Panthers. Falcons, 4-point favorites in this one. I think this is a good buying opportunity on the Falcons. I wrote that this week. That they're coming off a game in which I felt like it was more Cincinnati getting on track than like Atlanta's all of their flaws being laid bare. Maybe I'm off on that analysis, but I thought that game had more to do with Cincinnati than Atlanta.
I think
Um,
so.
and and I also feel like the Panthers last week's game, it won't be quite the aberration that the Jags beating the Bills last year was, because I think the Bills last year were significantly better than what the Buccaneers are right now. But at the same time, that I don't think that there's anything meaningful to really take away from that on the Panther side. I don't think that they're able to pull that off again. So I feel like this was something that was closer to like a 5.5 point line before Sunday. And I think that this is a good opportunity to like buy the discount basically for the Falcons.
Yeah, I don't know what this means. Covers is showing that like 62% of the bet volume is on the Falcons, and yet the spread has gone from 6.5 to 4.5. If we're going against the Monopoly man again, if he's picking the Panthers, I think I do like. I agree with what you said. I like the Falcons a lot more. I'm even curious about the Falcons at 6.5. Um, the thing about this mostly is that PJ Walker, that's the kind of quarterback that is so low level that whatever broader statistical trends you can generally count on, you no longer can. Like it's just it becomes like a preseason game with a guy like that playing, and you might get away with 1 or 2 games. You might play a completely dead Buccaneers team and catch them by complete surprise for what amounts to like 40 snaps, but you're not getting to 50 without the correction occurring. So I think Walker, against Dean Pease, I'm not expecting anything good from Walker. I guess AJ Terrell, if he's out, then DJ Moore goes against some scrub. Maybe that's the way it happens. But we already know Arthur Smith is not inclined to give the other team the ball. So he's going to try to get it to come down to just like 1 or 2 drives for Walker. And if they get the better of the Panthers offense, then I think that's all it takes really to cover, especially the 4.5. Uh, I don't know what Arthur Smith is doing exactly. I know he's really making a lot of people mad with his run heaviness, but he hasn't always done this. He kind of does a different thing year to year depending on the personnel that he has. So I think particularly given the way they've overachieved this year, he has some kind of insight that he's working on. And admittedly, I would like it to turn into more production for Kyle Pitts and Drake London, but I feel like he's still getting certain looks that it's just like until we get a different look from defenses, we're going to just try to batter them between the tackles and just try to make their defensive line into mush and then try to maybe open it up in the second half. But they're 5-1 against the spread for a reason, and Arthur has shown enough different offenses in his NFL career that I don't think it would make any sense to theorize that he's like doing this out of stubbornness or like some being committed to some stupid vision of his. I think he's working at something. I don't know what, admittedly.
But he's in the lab nonetheless.
He gets a benefit of the doubt that I don't give some other coaches, I guess I could have just said.
He does. I mean, with the sheer volume of hours that we've spent doing podcasts together, the reverent tones on Arthur Smith compared to some of the other bozo coaches,
And I've
it's
seen
it's noted.
So I've seen some people just like the way I rail on Hackett all the time. I see some people like, "You're just pissed off that Albert O was a bad pick." It's like, yeah, I'm always gonna get mad at some idiot coach wrecking the career of a good player, and even the ones that I'm not invested in. But notice I'm much more invested in Kyle Pitts than I am Albert Okwuegbunam, and I'm not going after Arthur Smith for turning Pitts into a 30-yard player. Like I don't just on that basis issue these judgments, or else I'd be going after Smith too.
Right. See, exactly. So well said. Let's grab a couple questions here. Trade one. So we'll try to work through this one fairly quickly. One of the players is from this game, Deontay Foreman. Should I trade? Jeb wants to know this. Should I trade Chris Godwin, Kareem Hunt, and Foreman for Stephon Diggs?
I would,
Already
yeah,
has Gabe Davis.
I would.
Yeah,
And
I mean that.
I mean, it's not like the best thing ever necessarily about Diggs Davis, but I don't view it as a negative. It's just like ambiguous at worst, and Diggs is a top 8 player.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Davis is so capable of those spike weeks to where I think that bodes well. If you have Allen, even better. But I think he would have mentioned that if he did. But regardless, pretty good. So we will take the dig side of that one. Got another question here. Flex one of these guys: Khalil Herbert, Gus Edwards, or those receivers, which are Christian Kirk, Curtis Samuel, George Pickens, or Wan'Dale Robinson.
I think Curtis Samuel is in play here. I'm not really that interested in hurt. Is Montgomery's not hurt, right?
No, but I think that there's like a little bit of optimism after the way that Herbert played Monday night, and seems like
Yeah, I
initially when
think
Montgomery got back, he disappeared from the offense, but that isn't the case so much right now.
Yeah, I think that's just an Elliott Pollard situation all over again. So I don't see Herbert quite as highly as some other people. I think I'd lean actually Curtis Samuel in that group, but I want to go Edwards. I just don't know what's going on with his knee.
Okay, yeah, no,
I
fair.
guess if they
So
say Edwards is in and starting, maybe I go with him then and just pray they're not doing Dobbins part 2.
So around what 6:30 Eastern time. Keep an eye for those inactives and all that good stuff. Before we get on over to our next game, got a message from our friends over at No House Advantage. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning big cash prizes. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot at hundreds of thousands of dollars every week. You can test your skills versus the house and 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up now with promo code NHAWIRE. That's NHAWIRE at nohouseadvantage.com, or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. You won't want to miss out on this. Also got a message from our friends over at Play with Swagger. There are 50 million fantasy sports players and sports bettors in the US, but 90% of all cash prizes are only won by 2% of players. That's because most sports gaming options were created for pros. The dudes dropping loads of cash on data to find an edge over the rest of us. Not Swagger. Swagger is a daily fantasy sports site created for sports fans who simply want some skin in the game and a real shot at winning. Tired of losing on one bad pick? With Swagger, you don't need to be perfect to win. You simply create a ticket of 4 to 10 simple player props and score points for the ones you get right. Your score determines your win, not the perfect ticket. You can be half right and be all right with Swagger. Swagger offers the most player props and biggest payouts of any DFS site, as much as 50 times your money. Plus, you can play fantasy football along with all the major U.S. pro sports, as well as international soccer, Formula One, NASCAR, fight sports, rugby, cricket, and even esports. Ready to play? Visit playwithswagger, SWAGGER.com/RotoWire to sign up, and Swagger will give you $10 free to try them out. plus match your first deposit 100% up to $100. So again, that's playwithswagger.com/RotoWire. All right, Mario, we're going to keep things rolling along here. Speaking of the Zeke Pollard conundrum, we got the Bear and actually the Bears with the Herbert and Montgomery one. We got the Cowboys playing host to the Bears. Cowboys 9.5-point favorites in this one. The Bears they sunk me in Survivor this past week, Mario. It was too obvious of a play, and therefore I should have done something else.
I don't think it's obvious that the Bears would win, that dominate that game. I think that's one of those.
No, I thought it was obvious that the Patriots were. I was like,
Right.
I hate using Survivor Monday nights, but there's something kind of electric about it. And then it just didn't work out. Chased the dragon too many times, and there we were looking at the Patriots. I couldn't get too mad at the Patriots getting bullied on national television, but at the same time, it was disappointing to
It
bow
was
out.
it, it was a pretty funny game, if only for the whole like mini Linsanity thing that we got about Bailey Zappi, where they're just like,
Oh, I'm so
he's
into it.
he's unstoppable. He's back in. This is how the story's the fairy tale is back in motion, and
Yeah, Bill's at it
they,
again.
then they just get just stomped anyway, and it's just like, ah, crap. That's right. He's not actually good.
Mac
No,
Jones
no.
is bad though too.
Yeah. I don't know if it's fair to assume he's like fully healthy at this point, but yeah, it is funny at the very least in hindsight. It was funny at the time too, but in hindsight, it's fun to mock the people who were like saying that Mac Jones was a top 5 quarterback last year. It's like, very generously, what's happened. We could very generously describe what's happening here as you seeing a guy complete a lot of passes and being impressed by it. Like, just no, it doesn't matter where those passes go, how much they amount to. Just completing passes is so good. That's the best thing an offense can do, I think, is complete as many passes as possible, and the rest will work itself out. And we've made all these formulas valuing offensive functions such that completing 22 passes on 30 attempts catapults you into the top 5 of a quarterback metrics. And for $1 billion more, we can tell you our really good stuff. Yeah, so whatever. It's ridiculous, and I find myself playing a little defense for Mac now all of a sudden, but it's just so ridiculous, so absurd given where we were not even a full year ago. Like 10 months ago, I had to tell people like, no, he's not a top 5 quarterback. It's shut up. But now it's like he's just. It's the Woody from Toy Story meme, the kid throwing him to the ground. Is like,
Yeah, I don't want to play with
we
you
don't want
anymore.
this top 5 quarterback anymore. We like Bailey Zappi now. So anyway,
But
that
Bailey
whole thing
Zappi
is
is like
stupid.
the baby like head doll with the spider legs.
I can't remember enough
Oh,
of the
that's like seared
toys.
into my memory. Like when I think of Toy
Okay,
Story, I think of that and I get scared.
yeah. That's getting into like the little the toaster. You're probably too young for that one. There's this little toaster movie where a toaster gets lost in an RV or something and gets taken all around the country and ends up in a like appliance boneyard kind of thing. And there's all these scary things.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's a haunting
you might like
description.
that, John. It's a surprisingly dark for what's I guess supposed to be like 8-year-old kid cartoon. Um, the other appliances get their souls snatched by a junkyard lifter thing. Anyway,
It's a
uh, th-
metaphor.
yeah, I'm glad we settled that history of darkness in Disney movies or whatever. I think the Patriots team just kind of, I don't know, they suck, but they can play enough defense. And Zach Wilson. Sorry, are we talking about this Jets game?
Well, we might as well be.
Okay,
So
because
yeah,
like
yeah, Patriots Jets.
Zach Wilson is so bad right now. I don't think he can play at all. To be fair, losing Elijah Vera Tucker and Breece Hall is insane, especially after what they already lost to injury. So it really is just Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. That's the Jets now, and I don't know if that's enough to win when Belichick could call that Buffalo the road game Buffalo Mac Jones offense. They could call that here and win, I think, by at least a touchdown. because Zach Wilson's going to get benched soon, probably after this game or in this game.
Yeah, it obviously, tough matchup last week going out to Denver, at least facing their defense. But Wilson still, I think your characterization of him is definitely accurate. I think this is a great spot for the Patriots to, you know, go ahead and maybe burst that bubble a little bit as far as the Jets and their momentum is concerned. So I'm on the Patriots as well. Let's go back to the Bears versus the
Oh,
Cowboys.
sorry.
So
Cowboys win by well, why not 10? Zeke's got to be out, right? MCL sprain. I don't think he come
MCL
back for.
sprain and like a painful thigh bruise.
Yeah. So Tony Pollard is. I won't say he's like overrated exactly, but he is misunderstood. There's a lot of people who watch him get a draw carry or an off tackle carry off the bench and see him get more 20-yard carries than Zeke, and they're just like, oh, he's better. It's like he's better on that play maybe, but you can't run a whole offense out of that play. Those situations are situational. That's why he's not a work. That's why Pollard isn't a workhorse running back. So there's maybe going to be this assumption that he just scales up in this contest, and I think what his investors should prepare for is kind of just like more of the same. Like he doesn't actually scale up that much. Roquan Smith is a tough matchup for him in space, and I don't know what else, especially now that Dak isn't a runner. Roquan might be pretty much free to keep an eye on Pollard. And I wouldn't be like criticizing Pollard if he couldn't get anything going against a guy like Smith. Smith's just a really really good linebacker. So it's not an easy matchup for Pollard, in my opinion, but it's still a relatively good one if we're correct to consider Dallas double-digit favorites, which I'm on board with that. I mean, it might be a lot of the defense doing the work, but Pollard's touches more than most weeks should occur in scoring range. It's the yardage that I don't think scales up.
And what do you make of the fact that the Bears, I believe, have surrendered the most sacks in football, and now they get to face a
The
Cowboys
most
pass rush?
sacks on 19 passes per game.
Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah,
Not a
that's
big deal.
incredible when you think about how rarely they do drop back.
Yeah, if there weren't so many metrics like valorizing the team management philosophy of just cutting costs, if just in America it weren't so if it weren't just cost cutting as like as a ritual, like a religious practice in itself, weren't so popular here, people would be looking at Ryan Poles and being like, "What the hell are you doing, dude? Why are you trying to kill your quarterback? Why are you trying to tarnish, destroy even your most valuable asset?" And he's like, I know that the man told me it's good when the number goes down, and I'm doing that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, this is really inspiring what you've built. I think it's pretty brutal. It's unfair to Fields. It's not even just Micah Parsons. I mean, Parsons is of course a total monster and maybe even the best defensive player in the league at this point. But Dallas is truly a swarm in the front seven. I mean, this Dorrance Armstrong's like blocking a field goal every game and on pace for like 8 sacks. DeMarcus Lawrence is a candidate to push for like 12, 14 sacks. Sam Williams is their fourth defensive end. That guy runs like a 4.46. He had 2 sacks last week. There's so many players in that front seven that can hurt you, and even the guys playing like 20 snaps, like the Golstons, uh, all those guys are tough the way they deploy them, and it's just so much to deal with. Even if you're a decent offensive line, if you're the worst maybe ever, it could be an issue.
So, yeah, no, exactly. So that it should end up being a long Sunday. Anything from Monday night that you can take away for the Bears that on the positive side, like is that the start of them maybe having a bit of a pulse on offense, or was that
Think
just
Fields
more?
is good, or at least I think he's worth building around, and they're not going to do any better than him for the foreseeable future. And I thought one of the ways they could stop sabotaging him basically is to actually leverage his ability as a runner. And if you're gonna if you can't block if you can't block 4 pass snaps without giving up a sack, and if your wide receiver two is Dante Pettis or whatever, then at the very least give your quarterback some running opportunities. Don't make them throw in that context. Why? There's no point. It's a death trap. So they got him going more as a runner, and I don't think it's a coincidence that he got better as a passer, and defenses just look generally less comfortable against them after they got Fields going as a runner. So they need to keep doing that. The cost, of course, is like you might expose him to more contact that way, but in practice, I don't actually think that's true for this team. It's like if you make him pass, he's getting hit more than he would be as a runner.
Yeah.
So they got to keep running him, and it's not a great hand that they're working with, but it's the one they gave themselves, and they can't make it any better than this.
Yeah, I think so as well. So I don't know. There's something there with Fields. We'll see if they can actually
Just
make
trade him,
something.
you idiots! God.
Why not? Let's go Lions Dolphins. Lions 3.5 point home dogs over under in this one. The highest I believe of the week, checking in at 51 and a half. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I wish I knew more about what was going on with DeAndre Swift because I really expected him to play last week, and if he's being held out, maybe there's reporting on this already. If he's being held out after practicing in the whole week, uh, he basically was either not really practicing and was just kind of set, it was declared by a team doctor like actually he can't really play, or the team was hoping he would be willing to play and he wasn't, or like he said like I don't know if I don't I don't really want to play, coach. I don't know if that's what happened or if it was the doctor saying like no, you're not going out there with your shoulder like this. I don't know which one it is, and the answer to which it is could explain a lot of things and have some repercussions for the future of this team. But in the meantime, they get a lot worse if they don't have Swift, and Goff is still bad, and even DJ Chark being I don't know if he's got a high ankle sprain. I know that was 2 weeks that he's out. Sometimes that turns to 4. Uh, Amon-Ra St. Brown's not healthy. They weren't supposed to be good in the first place, and then now all their best players are injured or
Yeah,
limited by
Chark
Goff.
is on IR now.
Okay, yeah, so that sucks. Yeah, so it's a very short-handed group, this Lions team, and it's irritating to me that there's people who are like Dan Campbell's really asking for it now. He's like, really? Like you didn't expect the Lions to be 1-5 or whatever? Like you thought they were going to be what, winning the North? Because no one was saying that before the season, and yet like there's this inability to keep perspective, and the goldfish brain that's always conditioned in us more and more every day. There's people who like let the heightened expectations of being surprised by how good the Lions were on offense in the first 3 weeks recalibrate their entire standard for how Dan Campbell's supposed to do his job. Like you are literally penalizing the guy for doing better than you thought he would do. That doesn't make any sense. You're goldfish if that's how you react at this point. So yeah, the people who are like, "Oh, Dan Campbell's failing," it's like his quarterback is Jared Goff. They weren't supposed to win, and all their best players are hurt. Figure it out, or don't actually stop trying to figure it out if that's how it goes for you. But the Dolphins, in any case, have a big advantage in a lot of ways, and the Detroit defense has no talent. Part of that is like I'm blaming Brad Holmes. Bad Holmes is more like it when
Folks,
you're spending that pick on Aiden Hutchinson, who they don't even know where he's going to play anymore. They're trying him at like outside linebacker, but they've only been using 4-man fronts. So I don't know if it's like they're going to try to run 3-man fronts just to get Hutchinson to look less bad. I think what they're going to have to actually do is have Hutchinson add 30 or 40 pounds and move inside, which is not what they had in mind. But this linebacker thing isn't going to work either. They could have had Stingley or Ahmad Gardner, and they would be so much further along if with either of those two than with Hutchinson. But as it is, they have no talent on defense. Even Okuda, that thing didn't last. So
I saw he had
they
like did he have 15 tackles last week?
oh God, I missed that. If so,
That's
that's
a
not
bad
great.
sign if your corner has 15 tackles.
Yeah, that's not good.
You want
And
him having like 2 or 3.
especially when the guy on the other side is Amani or Owarie. It's like, should we throw it for the free first down over here, or should we throw it at Okuda? And I guess they were saying to throw it at Okuda 15 times. I think the Miami offense should just be wheels up here. Like Mostert looks good. The two receivers, of course, look good. No reason Gesicki should fail here if they use him. That's the concern. They might not need to. The Lions side, I don't know what you can take for granted. I mean, there's a lot of slack there for Hawkinson, and if Swift is playing, there's slack for him too. But the Lions offense falls apart if they can't run explosively, if they can't leverage that offensive line into the game. And you can only leverage that offensive line into the game so much when as a passing unit, because Goff is still the negating variable there. So if they don't have the explosive plays on the ground in addition to volume on the ground, I don't know what they even are in theory at that point.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a mess. I think my take on this game, it could really go this could look extremely wrong. I think it was this weekend last year when the Eagles went up there and they were like 3.5, 4.5 point favorites. And I was like, this could be the Dan Campbell special week. This is the week that, the Lions against all odds are able to kind of like rise up and get a win outright. And I believe Philadelphia like blanked them or won like 40-10 or something crazy like that. So that's certainly in play in this one. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I think that the Lions are kind of in gut check time. Where halfway point of the season, they've already had their bye. That they lost to the Cowboys in pretty uninspired fashion last week. They're at home. Maybe the Dolphins overlook this one a little bit, and maybe the Lions are able to keep this one close. But I
If
would
they
prefer
do,
this one to be like 4.5.
yeah, the Dolphins version of blowing this game would be like just giving up points. I think the possibility of the Dolphins failing to score just doesn't exist
No.
to me. I just don't think that a better defense than this was struggle with these two receivers on turf. It's too much.
Yeah. I am excited to see the Tyreek Hill shares this week. He is just having an unbelievable season. He's ridiculous. All right, we'll keep things chugging along here. We got a lot of games to get to here, so let's rattle some off. Cards, Vikings. Vikings 3.5 point favorites. They are Vikings coming off the bye, whereas the Cardinals off the mini bye after getting the win last Thursday night. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, I still don't have actual faith in the Cardinals or Cliff Kingsbury, but I got to give Cliff Kingsbury some credit. He finally started moving his receivers around last week, and I don't know why now. I don't know why you wouldn't do it a long time ago. And if you didn't do it a long time ago, I don't know why you wouldn't just see it through the whole way with the ridiculous offense that he used to run, which was just DeAndre Hopkins on the left every single play. This year it was Marquise Brown on the left every single play up until last week, and they had DeAndre Hopkins going in the slot, their left and the right. It's a start. I have to concede. I have to give Cliff Kingsbury some credit. It's not enough. You have to keep expanding on the premise, but the idea of what if we tried to just trick them a little bit. What if we tried to catch them by surprise? Is that good? Is that having the element of surprise? Is that good? I can't remember. Cliff just remembered last week, and maybe he'll meditate on it further. Maybe he'll get somewhere if he does. I don't know. But just moving Hopkins into the slot, it's like finally the defense has to think. They can't sleepwalk through every single play. They have to ask maybe, hey, who's that? What's he doing over there? Something, anything. They have to have a question occur in their mind now. So that's something. But do I trust Cliff's ability to actually expand on the premise? Not really. And their defense is kind of a mess. I know they had some big plays. That's just one of those was Callaway playing tip drill, and the rest was just kind of the Dalton regression that had to occur.
Yeah.
I don't think that Arizona defense is going to keep up. I mean, getting if they keep Collins going as a rusher a little bit, that's a change from earlier in the year. I'm skeptical of it all. They were overachieving last week, and Kirk can play stupid sometimes. I don't want to make it sound like he's a steadying presence exactly, but he has a big wide receiver to corner, wide receiver to safety advantage in this game, and Dalvin Cook should be able to run in this game. I don't really know why the Vikings would blow it on their side. And granted, uh, Kyler against that Vikings defense is a little like you can imagine him getting a big play, be it on the ground or through the air. Those Vikings corners really can't run with like Rondale. But if that's the next thing Cliff needs to wake up about. Get Rondale downfield. Especially if you're going to make the guy run like 35 routes within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, why not have one play in that game? Because you've given the defense plenty of reason to assume it's going to be that same thing, that 40th time in a row. Why not have him go downfield, and then the defense. You think that 40th time the defense is just going to be like, I bet they're going deep here. Like, no, just trick them one time, try it out. Rondale's fast, it'll work. But until he does that, it's like, how is Rondale supposed to break out just catching these stupid bubble screens all game?
Yeah, that no, it get him moving. I understand like the idea of getting the ball in his hands, but like they've kind of exhausted that
And they were
theory.
using him too much outside. There were too many places where they had Dortch in the slot, and they were putting more outside. I'm talking about more still in the slot. I don't want the 5'7" guy running outside if at all possible. It's just
But
you
I mean,
don't
Dortch is
have
really small too, though. So what I mean,
right. Dortch just shouldn't be on the field, or it should be a four wide where they have two slots and Ertz isn't in the slot, something like that.
mhm.
But yeah, this thing where they're making room for Dortch in the slot, they're turning Rondale into Andy Isabella that way, and they're eventually Cliff's going to do what he did with Isabella, which is eventually resent him for not being the kind of player that he needs for the task that he wants. It's like just get the right player for the right task, and if he can't get it, give that player the right task for them. Then
Speaking of Andy Isabella, do you think there's a chance that with all the Ravens injuries that he gets called up today?
I don't know. I mean, I sure hope so. I know he's a bust, but I'm sorry. There's not a universe where Demarcus Robinson is more useful than Andy Isabella. And if your scheme has particularities such that Robinson is more useful, then your scheme sucks, and you should get rid of it right away. Yesterday. So I think in particular what Isabella would be dangerous for in this offense is you're going to need to move Duvernay outside. You're going to need to have Andrews lined up in line probably, or four wide with two slot reps. And you're going to want Isabella in the slot, and you're going to want him running deep posts, fly routes and deep posts. Don't even have him do anything else. It doesn't matter if he gets the ball in that play. You want that defense to do some cardio for once. You want someone to get back to the huddle, sucking air instead of getting back, yawning like they do right now. If you put Demarcus Robinson on the field, there's no reason to defend that guy. What the hell are you going to defend him for? You got better things to do. So I think if you put Isabella out there, if a defense approaches him the same sort of lax way they can Demarcus Robinson, he's running past them, and they won't catch him. So I like the idea of using Isabella on deep posts, fly routes from the slot, playing off of the Lamar run threat specifically, because that safety takes one step. That's all Isabella needs.
He was signed enough long ago in Baltimore to where I feel like he needs to get on the active roster. So I don't know. Keep that in
I'd like
mind.
to see it tried out because I know
Yeah.
he's been a bust in the NFL. I know his hands are bad, but I'm sorry, that guy put up numbers at Massachusetts that players just don't do, including
No,
against good teams. Like he had a big
he
game against
toasted
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah, it's like just if he's a little delicate, then so what? Just accommodate him. You don't find guys who can run like this very often.
Yeah, they just had Marquise Brown for a while. They know what delicate looks like. Like,
Yeah, just, he
um,
can't. He's not like he can't like be a laser flashlight the way Marquise Brown can. Like Isabella, he kind of moves on skates, but the speed is still there, and it's not easy to just run with him.
yeah, no, he can definitely burn. Let's grab a couple of questions here before we move on to our next game. Should I trade Travis Kelsey and Kareem Hunt for Leonard Fournette, Michael Pittman, and Darren Waller? I say no. I think Kelsey's just kind of a unicorn. Kareem Hunt still useful even if he's still on the Browns post trade deadline. Whereas we'll get to that game here soon. I'm actually fascinated to hear your thoughts when it comes to Indianapolis now. But Waller, I you really just it's hard to have injury optimism for him. Fournette, that's a kind of busted Bucks offense, and it seems like they're getting Rashad White a little bit more involved. So I would stay put.
Yeah, I would keep Kelsey and Hunt for now.
Yeah, Kelsey is just like that's the type of player to where the rest of your lineup can kind of throw in some duds, and Kelsey like drags you to a narrow victory. Like he's just that much of a difference maker, especially at tight end. Connor wants to know: should I trade Mixon and Juju for DeAndre Swift and Tyler Lockett?
I
I
don't
say
think I
no.
would.
You would?
I don't think I would. No.
Okay, don't think
I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
it's not like it's not obvious to me either way. I can imagine Mixon finishing better than he started, especially if Burrow can keep things. Not that Burrow's going to need to throw 440 and four touchdowns or whatever every week, but the Bengals getting more on track, it will show up for Mixon eventually too.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to have leads that they're nursing, and then it can just be hammer time for Mixon in the second half. Darius wants to know Travis Etienne or Chris Godwin in the flex this week.
Man, that's tough. I wish if I knew what the Ravens were going to do with their corners, I might have been able to say Godwin, because especially if they're leaving Godwin against Pepe, that is Godwin's going off if that happens. But if they put Marlon Humphrey in the slot, effectively shadowing Godwin, that's a much tougher assignment for Godwin. So I'd probably go ETN, but the other disclaimer there is I'm pretty much higher on ETN than anyone is, I guess.
Yeah, I would go ETN as well. Runway a little bit more cleared, but like you said, shouldn't be like a 20-25 carry guy. But with Robinson being gone now and really no obvious like guy to push ETN, I think we're going to start to see, for better or for worse, a lot more ETN here the rest of the way, and I think the results should be positive. Let's go Raiders Saints. Raiders 1-point favorites on the road down there in New Orleans. The Raiders looked good last week. I think a lot of it had to do with the Texans. And the Saints, like they're pretty well coached, but the way that they're set up, like they're just going to make killer mistakes every single week, whether it's Dalton, whether it's Jameis Winston, and they just don't have a ton of talent at receiver that's healthy right now. And maybe the defense is not quite as good as it was in recent years. So even with New Orleans being a tough place to play, I do feel like this is a good spot for the Raiders.
Yeah, I don't know what's going around with the Raiders, but it seems like they've got some kind of illness thing going around. Like they're listing Adams, Jonathan Abram, Tayshaun Bauer, and Clelin Ferrell as all not practicing with illness yesterday. So don't know what that is, but Darren Waller in a limited practice is pretty reassuring. Otherwise, I guess I don't know why Josh Jacobs is so unstoppable all of a sudden.
It's awesome to watch. Like he looks like a hoss out there.
Yeah, I guess it's all because of Dylan Parham taking over at left guard. To be serious, I don't know what else changed. It's like these same guys were all here, except Dylan Parham, who was a good pick. The Memphis guard or whatever he is. I know that one game a couple weeks ago I saw him like always blocking someone like 7 or 8 yards downfield. So they might just have quietly turned into a really good run blocking offensive line, if only for one player taking a big step at the left guard spot. But in this setting, you would kind of expect normally the Saints to try to sell out to stop someone like Jacobs producing the way he is. But if so much as just Adams is playing, then they can't really do that because unless Lattimore gets back and is close to 100%, which it doesn't. Abdomen injury, not practicing Wednesday. That doesn't sound like the kind of injury you just jump back from after multiple games out. So if there's no Lattimore and if Adams isn't out with this illness, then the Saints have to sort of leave a little bit open for Jacobs, or else they'll leave Adams under covered. So it seems like, there's no real good excuse for failing here if you're the Raiders side. And I just don't know. The Saints offense is difficult for me to think through. I think Jameis should be their quarterback when healthy, but he's already a fringe player. If he's got like a broken back, that's not that exciting at that point. So I don't know what to expect from them. I don't think Dalton's quite as bad as his numbers were in the last game. Like I think he sucks. I think he should be backing up Winston if Winston's healthy. I just don't know if Winston is. And Olave is so nuts that I think as long as Dalton only turns it over one time, then a Kamara plus Olave game could be enough. If only because the Raiders are not they're not stocked with that much depth themselves. But yeah, it's hard to imagine how Jacobs would fall off unless the Raiders passing game is just playing T-ball all game.
Yeah, that is of course the big storyline, big wrinkle in that particular matchup. Should be a good one though. I'm got some DFS intrigue for that one. We'll see how that one plays out. I do like Olave in this setup as well, like you said.
He's been
Before we get
insane. I
on
don't even
over
understand it. Go
to,
ahead.
oh, you're good. Before we get on over to our next game, got a message from our friends over at MKF. Football is officially back on Monkey Knife Fight with all the NFL action you're looking for. And if college football is more your speed, they've got plenty of that too. On Monkey Knife Fight, there's no sharks, no salary caps, and no math. It's just easy to play, easy to win, daily fantasy player props. Join now at monkeyknifefight.com and you'll get your first game free. Then use promo code RWNFL to get your first deposit matched instantly up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Join Monkey Knife Fight today. Eagles,
John,
Steelers.
real
Yes.
quickly, I don't think this is a fake account. It looks like the real Adam Schefter is saying Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs for a third and a sixth.
Wowzers. All right, your
Yeah.
instant reacts to that.
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what the hell's going on with Kadarius Toney. Probably never will. I don't think it's all. I think Dable's a good coach, and I think if Tony had like the headbutting going on there that he did with Joe Judge, then it's like I'm not convinced this is really going to work out for the Chiefs. But I also think they're going to bring him along real slow because they're probably not going to re-sign Hardman after this year, so they might see Tony as kind of just like a I don't know like a the kind of asset you can't you know cash out on for another year, but they're also they're ready to just leave him there for a year if necessary. I don't know.
What does this say about Sky Moore?
I don't think it matters for him. I mean, he was just like the victim of unfair expectations as a rookie. Like he's an underclassman from Western Michigan, and we knew he was going to be kind of like slot oriented. Like his build has certain limitations, so people kind of just fixated on his draft capital and like the Chiefs' offense is also a lot of virulent Hardman hatred. I think fueled the Sky Moore optimism, but it's like the guy is categorically limited as far as like the concepts you can run. Like some receivers can play in any concept. That's not Sky Moore. And the one area where he runs his concepts most reliably, A, there's Kelsey. B, there's three veterans, two of which are free agents after this year. It's just a lot for an underclassman from the MAC to claim more than a peripheral role there. So the lack of playing time for Moore, the lack of production for Moore, I don't think it matters at all for his long-term trajectory. The Chiefs are just a team that run a lot of 3-4 wide, and Juju and Hardman are both free agents.
I think you're missing the forest for the trees here, Mario. Sky Moore wears number 24, and he's a receiver. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they should move him to running back or change his number and
change the number, and maybe things start to turn around. But either way, this Tony trade, they're interesting. And Sky Moore,
let's be serious. Tony's probably completely insane. This has been an issue with him in every step of the way. Dable is not Joe Judge. The Joe Judge part, I was like, yeah, Joe Judge is a jerk. I'm not going to assume anything about Tony from that. But when Dable got there, and almost immediately was like, I don't know what the hell is with this guy. It's like, okay, that's not great.
Yeah, showing up with like the wrong size shoes and stuff before the draft to practice, and
like imagine Florida seeing him in practice every day and being like, I don't know how the hell to get this guy on the field. Like for 4 years, Florida acted like it was impossible to get Tony the ball. Maybe it actually was.
Yeah, yeah, so definitely something up there. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so we got the battle of the Keystone State, Mario. We got Philly and Pittsburgh squaring off. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough setting for the Steelers. I mean, quarterback's Kenny Pickett. Eagles just added Robert Quinn. You didn't want to see that Eagles defense to begin with if you were the Steelers offense. So, it looks real rough to me. I mean, Darius Slay, I think, can remove Deontay Johnson from a game, and I think James Bradbury could be really tough for Pickens on the other side. I'm a Pickens fan. It's not that I am not the person to normally doubt him. It's just he is a rookie underclassman, and he is going against one of the NFL's best taller corners in the event that Slay is shadowing Johnson. And if Pickens is going against Slay, that's probably even worse than going against Bradbury. So I think it's Claypool who has pretty clearly the best matchup here. the Eagles almost cannot keep their usual look here. They usually have Avonte Maddox in the slot, and if they put Avonte Maddox in the slot all game, they risk the Mike Evans playoff game from last year, where Mike Evans kept going in the slot, and the Eagles were just like, don't know what to do. We got to just put 5'9" Avonte Maddox on him and hope it works out. Oh, it didn't work. And this time around, I would be shocked if Gannon was just like, let's see how Maddox does with the guy who is more than a half foot taller than him and 55 pounds heavier and still about as fast as him. That's not fair to Maddox. So then again, there have been matchups like this before this year where the Steelers didn't get anything going with Claypool. So uh, Gannon's got to think of something there. Maybe he does. Maybe it's as simple as like he's got to. I put a robber over here, and that's that. We're done. You know, maybe it is that simple. But if Pickett can't get Claypool going, I don't know what. Maybe I mean Freiermuth is really good. I didn't mean to skip him. It's just Kenny Pickett has to make it happen. I think in the middle of the field, and I don't think he can hold on to the ball as long as he'd like to, because that pass rush is going to get to him. So I could see this as just like a really, really bad game for Pickett.
You know, that we talked about goldfish brain earlier and having perspective. Sunday night, I was pretty rattled for the opening part of that last drive for the Steelers, where Pickett looked good. He delivered some like impressive throws. Then, of course, throws the game-losing interception to Noah Igbenanagi. Oh shoot!
I didn't know.
I really stepped in it there. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, I know Pickett's made some, like he has a sort of moxie to him or whatever. Like his problem is not being a Blaine Gabbert who just like holds onto the ball and plays like a coward, but his problem is that he has the athletic tools of like a recreational flag football league quarterback, and that shows up eventually. Like even if he makes the right call, even if he throws a pass that for him is accurate, there's no stuff to work with. And I was like he's trying to be a starting pitcher who throws 82. You know, like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's no room for Jamie Moyer in this league anymore.
No, Pickett would have been a fine quarterback back when players were part-time insurance salesmen or whatever too, but now it's just not going to work. And uh, even the plays that he does make are so often like just by a shoestring, you know, like just in not just the distinction between success and not succeeding. I mean, like the good plays are very nearly car accidents almost every time. And eventually they will start being car accidents too. Like the bad plays will stay and the good lucky ones will just disappear and there will be nothing left eventually. And I think it could be this week.
There we go. So you think 10 points Eagles cover that?
Yeah. I think they'll win by like 20. But I love saying this team by 25 or whatever, and they, you know, maybe win by 2 or something.
I love it. It's a good recurring joke we got going on. But yeah, no, I do like the Eagles in this spot. Let's go Titans, Texans. Titans, winners of 4 straight, Mario.
Yeah, in this league where just like in this league where 25 teams minimum are just awful all the time, Mike Vrabel is annually dangerous. He's almost like the AFC South Mike Tomlin at this point. It's like just going out there with these crap preseason teams and still winning as like multiple score underdogs or whatever. The Titans can do some things, but only some things, and you know they're in trouble if those some things don't go because there is no AJ Brown punch to land. You know, if Derrick Henry's failing to get the ball moving, Robert Woods, I don't know, man. Like he's pretty good, but they're putting a level of exposure on him that doesn't really suit him, that he's never produced under in the NFL anyway. So he's fine, but like I don't know if I even expect him to get the better of a player like Stingley. People don't really notice yet, but Stingley's really good, and like he might be as good as Surtain pretty quickly here. Him and Gardner obviously are both very good picks in the top 5 this year. I think I don't know, Tennessee that run game is not easily stopped. It's always easier said than done to stop Henry. But if
and
they just
the
if they
Texans
just keep
never
him
do.
under 85 yards or something, I don't know what Tennessee's doing at that point.
Right. So I'm just of the belief that Derrick Henry feasts this week. I think that
Okay.
the Josh Jacobs game from last week, I think could be a little bit of an appetizer for what we're about to see on Sunday.
Yeah, especially if they're at all like catching their breath from that one, it's like this is the one thing you can't be looking at when you're still trying to catch your breath.
Yeah, I guess really the only thing that's stopping the Titans here, and I'm stopped short of like really, hammering this point home. But Tannehill with his ankle injury, if they have to go to Malik Willis, I don't think that he's quite ready yet. But it's not like Tannehill's
I'm
doing great.
intrigued. I will
Okay.
say if you just run the damn wishbone every
Yeah.
week, it's like when it's like when some team never faces the triple option and they're like 8-0 and they just are living in hell for that one game. Like that's what Willis can give you, I think, if nothing else, and if it lets
Like when
Tannehill get
Army
healthy.
almost beat Oklahoma a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's always the military school, or yeah, I guess back in the day, Georgia Tech. It's like that they go against some team that's like, we just beat the number 8 team. We're rolling. We don't have to care about anything. It's like triple option, just reduces you, takes you back to the Stone Age, and you're just not ready to live there.
No, and you run into the caveman who has the femur bone. He's ready to get you.
Femur bone is a one-hit kill. You can't let him get you.
It's known. It's the strongest bone in the body. Let's before we get to our next game, couple more questions here. Alec wants to know, should he trade? He's in pretty good shape here with his running backs. He's got Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor. Should he trade one of them for Travis Kelce?
Oh man, that's tough because I mean, turning Jacobs into Kelsey is fine. I'm wondering like how you can get greedy with this, if anything. And I think the way to maybe do it, I don't want to sell on Taylor exactly, but I'm not convinced Taylor outproduces Jacobs from here or that by that much. If so, and if you offer Taylor, you're probably going to get more back than you would offering Jacob. So I'm wondering if you might be able to turn Taylor into Kelsey and another player who, at the very least, is a depth upgrade for you, or a
Yeah,
worthwhile lottery ticket at running back, maybe like some backup running back who plays a lot more if someone else gets hurt. Because with Jacobs, either one is totally justifiable. I would want more for Taylor, and I think you might be able to get more for Taylor and kind of be able to play it as greedily as possible.
yeah. I think Taylor's. This is about as low as his like trade market value for fantasy is going to be.
Yeah, don't sell low on Taylor. Like
No,
I'm just using it as a way to get even more back and hopefully not, truly lose much for it.
yeah, no, exactly. And then obviously this roster pretty well set at running back, and getting a Kelsey upgrade
And Jacobs for Kelsey is totally fine too, I think.
I agree. Got a dynasty question here from Beef Steak Tips. Dynasty 10-teamer. Would you trade Stafford and Judy for Debo Samuel and a third-round rookie pick? I think third
Is
round,
this super
obviously.
flex or something? Because absolutely, if not, and even
Yeah,
then, I
I
think I
would
do.
say,
I would rather
yeah,
have Debo alone than Stafford and Judy.
yeah, honestly. And when when the draft pick you're giving up is just the third,
I read it as
I,
getting a third. But
oh,
anyway,
sorry.
I
So yeah, he get so trading away. Yeah, so you get a third round rookie. Yeah, so totally in on that one. Let's go again. I'm sickly intrigued by this game, Mario. Commanders going out to Indy. Sam Ellinger time.
yeah.
What do I tweeted it out yesterday, and like most of my tweets, not a whole lot of traction. What's the best case scenario for Sam Ellinger?
You can't. I don't know what tweet you're talking about, but you can't just keep tweeting Hypnotoad over and over and over.
It's
Everyone's already
hypnotizing
seen
you. I'm back on my
it.
Futurama big time lately.
Yeah, it's a good show. So
But
I don't know what to make of Ellinger. I thought he was really ugly to watch even at Texas, and he does have that frame to leverage as a runner. That's the one thing.
yes,
He's the kind of runner who in being like a non-asset quarterback, the Colts have the luxury of kind of running him into the ground and just putting him out there as collateral in ways that they wouldn't a normal quarterback's body. And hopefully he doesn't get clobbered too hard, but he might be running like 15 times in this game. And I know Reich wants to get a passing game going, and he's like,
That's
we
not
gotta
going to happen with
we
Ellinger.
gotta get Hines going. We don't want to just run all the time. It's like, well, then you want to lose all the time because you got to run. It's
Well,
the
in
only
like
thing you have left.
throwing all the time, you saw where that got them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why it's so ideologically contentious to just say you should throw more if you're good at it. It's like that's not enough for the people who have a stroke anytime someone cites the running 25 times as a winning percentage of whatever. They can't see that and imagine any sort of middle ground. They have to just shriek and fixate on it and go completely insane and say actually, it's literally always more efficient to throw the ball more. It literally is always more efficient to throw the ball. It's like, have you seen Sam Ellinger throw the ball? Have you seen Matt Ryan throw the ball? I don't think it's true all the time, right? And they're like, no, all the time, every time. It is never an exception. And so I guess we'll see. I don't know if I have no particular faith in Reich at this point. None, rather more specifically, but I don't think he's going to try to throw the ball 35 times with Ellinger. You can't do it
No.
even if you try. Is the thing. He's going to cut a lot of those plays and start running.
So my the tail end of that tweet was my personal stab at what the best case scenario might look like. Rookie year Jalen Hurts.
I was probably something of a Hurts skeptic in that I thought there was only a very narrow path that he could succeed with. But then the Eagles built that exact thing beyond my wildest dreams, and now I have no concerns about Hurts, at least as how the Eagles are currently built. Ellinger, I see no path for. There's just nothing, in my opinion. It's like he could be a good backup, and that would be a big success for his career. Again, he can run, and he can take hits. He did it in college a lot. A lot of the Texas offense at times was just kind of like just beat your head against the defense and see if they fall to the side eventually, and
And
they kind
I
of
mean, he
did.
was down. He was down to do that. Like
Yeah,
he
he's
was an
tough and
absolute
he
bull.
he can run. He's like a good athlete, especially for how big he kind of is. But when you would watch him pass at Texas, it felt like watching a trick play or something. It felt like watching like a tight end catch a fake end around and turn to throw the ball upfield.
Hmm.
It just doesn't look like a real quarterback throwing the ball. So they need to run with him, and the Colts, Reich needs to get over this. They need to set up those run heavy looks to get the defense in a run heavy personnel. Because if they're going like five wide with Ellinger, it's a joke. Like the defense is just going to eat them up.
Yep.
So they need to run from bigger personnel than they'd like. They have to have fewer route runners than they'd like probably, and they need to run with Ellinger between the tackles. Not just demonstrating a bootleg here and there. They need to make the defense worry about that A gap every play.
So this kind of ties into what you were talking about a few minutes ago with like the shock to the system that you can get playing a run heavy team, or in
Yeah.
the college example, a triple option team. Do you see some of that potentially occurring here in this Indianapolis game, where Washington coming off of the exciting win, they turned it over to Taylor Heineke, get the win over the Packers, now have to go out to Indianapolis, and they if Indianapolis really throws the kitchen sink at them with their run game, could this like get just off track enough for Washington to where Indianapolis finds a way to win?
Yeah, I like Indianapolis to win. Partly for that detail that you mentioned, and I don't know if there's a single defensive coordinator in the league that I trust less than Jack Del Rio in any context, but especially when it comes to like a breadth of knowledge. Like, does anyone really believe Jack Del Rio knows? Like, could he spot like an Art Briles offense? Would he know what it was if he saw it? Has he seen anything like it before? Like,
No,
there's no
the
way.
Tony Sperano Wildcat would break his brain.
Yeah, I think that Jack Del Rio he's probably studying the Broncos Bengals AFC Championship game or something from 1984 or whenever the hell. Like He's
I was like
he's
going
watching
through my
old
mental
tape of,
Rolodex trying to
he's
find
studying
where that
old
was.
tape of himself, probably. I guess he
Back
was used
when
later.
men were men and they wore cowboy collars.
Yeah, when we had real quarterbacks like Boomer Esiason and Ken O'Brien and whatever else. And anyway, he's living in the past. If we're being generous about it, I would say it's more accurate to say that Del Rio is just a total mess and of a person and not good at his job, and he's not ready for like a this kind of particular offense probably.
Then we'll quickly touch on the Washington offense side of this.
It
Heineke
sucks,
seemed to.
Sean.
It sucks.
It sucks. Yeah. Terry
But
McLaurin's
Gibbo
awesome.
had a good game last week.
Yeah, Gibbo. I can't. Who could have imagined that he's actually better than the guy who's never been good? Well, good luck with good luck with that, Washington. The key to winning this game is getting Brian Robinson going between the tackles. You need to soften up DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. You just got to soften them up. Just just keep running at them and not fumbling, and that'll open up the whole offense. You got to believe me.
Oof.
Stick
Oof.
with it. Don't lose the faith, Ron.
No,
Give it to B-Rob.
Every time. 2 yards in a cloud of dust, baby. All right, let's go. Oh, we got a couple more. We got Rams, Niners. Rams coming off the bye. Niners, a couple of tough losses in a row for them. Defense looked bad against Patrick Mahomes. That'll happen. Can happen to anybody. They obviously didn't look good against the Falcons. That was a road game. And some weird stuff happened in that game, of course, as well. Does McCaffrey get a little bit more involved this week? And, what is your kind of general read on this matchup, given, what we saw on that Monday night or earlier on in the season?
I think San Francisco is going to be playing against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. I think they're going to get it going here. They're in a difficult spot, of course, but it's something you could have largely expected if you knew all the injuries they were going to be dealing with. So it's different than a team getting everything they wanted and not knowing what the hell to do with it. Like they've had their bad luck hopefully now, and hopefully they're not subjected to any more. And if so, I think McCaffrey's going to be a big deal in that offense. I mean, he already looked good, and it is as much as someone like I think Elijah Mitchell is clearly a good player, and I think he'll have a role when he gets back. But you can see the value of like a truly elite running back. It's not hard to see the difference. Like you just look at McCaffrey in that last game, and it's like, oh yeah, the 49ers have never had this. So
Yeah.
that's going to be interesting. And Shanahan, I'm sure, will come up with something good. Even with Garoppolo, even with stupid Jimmy at quarterback, there's no way that they're not going to get that offense going with Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, and McCaffrey, and eventually Mitchell.
Yeah, that's a sweet loadout.
And Mitchell, Trent Williams finally being healthy is a big change. Like they're going to build on that. So 49ers are going to get hot, I think. And whereas the 49ers, they didn't get any of the things that they asked for, and they're trying to make the most of it. The Rams got everything they asked for going into this year, and they suck anyway. And
Yep.
I don't know how anything's going to get better there. So shorthanded, battered, beleaguered as the 49ers might be, I think the Rams have much bigger problems.
They do. And, I think that clearly Shanahan has a special sauce against McVay, at least in the regular season. So I definitely am on the 49ers here as well. Let's go Giants, Seahawks. Seahawks 3-point favorites in this one. Do we trust the Giants to just keep being world beaters?
Not really. I mean, I think Dable is good. I was criticizing Dable earlier in the year. Not that I was like losing the faith on him, but I was criticizing his decision to not play Darius Slayton and play David Sills over him. That was ridiculous. But Dable is not like a lot of other coaches in that he is capable of learning, and he made that wrong move initially, but then he got a couple weeks in and he was like, oh crap, I can see why Slayton might be useful here. They put in Slayton, the offense has found a new gear entirely. And it's not that they're like a juggernaut, they're far from it, but like they made themselves better in season, and a lot of coaches don't have the insight. They have too much pride, too much pride in their idiotic decision making to make that switch. Whereas Dable's just like, oh, whoops, let's put the better guy in. So he's working toward making them better all the time. He's always thinking about it. He's usually going to be on the right track. I think Dable's always not every single case, but over a broader sample, he will outcoach the people that he's coaching against. I just don't know if Carroll's the kind of guy to get outsmarted by him. And I know people, even I indulged the idea too much recently that Carroll is, a goof or the game has passed him by. I don't think
Sure.
it has. I think he's going to be ready for this game, and then the Seahawks are going to show up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We do have some injury concerns on the Seahawks pass catchers
Yeah.
side of things with Metcalf and Lockett both being listed questionable. I think this is a great setup for Walker, though. I think if there's like an obvious glaring weakness on this Giants team, other than quarterback, their run defense has been pretty bad, and I think the Seahawks are not the team you want to be going against when that's the case.
Yeah, I'd really wish. I don't know if Homer is back yet, but I'd really like him to get healthy if possible because I think him and Walker can both run, and it would have been nice to have a second runner to turn to in this game in the event that Metcalf and/or Lockett are limited. But yeah, Walker's going to get at least, I would say, 16 carries. They could take him up to 20 or something. If they're winning, there might be more carries yet to give, and I hope Homer's able to jump in and take those. But I guess it'd have to be Dallas if not.
So your thoughts on the total in this one? We're looking at 44 and a half.
Yeah, I wish we could have gotten the under at the 46.5. I think you're going to have to run a lot if you're either team. That just tends to make the clock go faster than you might expect. And one extra first down on a drive than an offense typically sees can lead to like another 5 minutes in the clock going out.
Yep.
So it's that you're working against, and the lower the over under gets, the more you need a big play to happen. The more you need at least one of the teams to run an uncharacteristic amount of passes. Uh, I like, if I have to call the over or the under from 44.5, I'd still lean the under actually.
Under's still hitting 60% of the time, roughly, this season. So it's been crazy. How static that is now about halfway through the season. Let's quickly hit these two night games and get on our merry ways. So first off, we got Packers. Have you heard that this is the first time that Aaron Rodgers has been a double-digit underdog going up against Buffalo?
Yeah, he sucks. The Packers suck. They're not going to get anywhere close to Buffalo in this one. Rodgers is going to throw probably a tantrum. Uh, at the very least, after the game, I think he might throw one in the game too. He's gone, man. He's a loon. He's really on this idea that like everyone else is failing him, and it's not the case. Like, so yes, you could have an all Madden, Madden Legends roster around you, and they would be a lot better than the players that you have. You're still not making the plays that are in front of you, and then when you don't make them, like some kind of I guess I can't. I don't know. I can't say the word that I want to. He starts just blaming anybody else, even if it's like some rookie receiver. He's like, "Dude, you're like 40. You can just let this kid go. Even if you think it's his fault, just don't toss him to the media. Don't be a
Right.
jerk. Like just be gracious once and have some grace for once, Aaron Rodgers." But he's just brain damaged by like the fame and having a bunch of yes men around him, and now he sucks at football too.
Yep, too cool for school. Bills. You can get this at 11.5 on
Sure.
BetMGM. Uh, I think I would go with the Packers with that over there. But 10.5.
Packers got nothing, and the little bit they have going, Rodgers just misses it. I bet the Bills win by like at least 2 touchdowns.
Dang. Okay. All right. Fair enough. And then rounding us out here, we got Browns playing host to the Bengals. Bengals 3.5-point favorites. This one in Cleveland, but I think we're starting to see Cincinnati get itself in gear, and I
I
think
hope
that
so.
yeah, I'm in. I'm a believer,
I don't believe in
and
the Browns. I know that much.
no.
Joe Woods, especially, that guy's getting fired after this game, maybe. Especially if the Bengals stay hot, because Stefanski's not going to go. But whose fault is this, Kevin? It's not.
hmm
It's not yours. Then Joe Woods' fault. Well, we demand a payment.
Yep, and therefore, he must go. Heads will roll. That game coming in on Halloween night. Looking forward to that one. A lot of orange and black.
That's spooky.
Pretty good. Pretty spooky indeed. But that's going to wrap things up for us here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to check out myself and Nick Whalen on the BetMGM RotoWire sports betting podcast, just jamming a bunch of verbal SEO words in there. And then let's see. Also, be sure to listen to Scott Genstad, Ryan Belangi on Fridays with that DFS breakdown. Really important, good stuff that they're tossing out there every week to help you build your best lineups, cash and tournaments alike. That's going to do it for us here. Thanks again to our friends over at No House Advantage for presenting this podcast from Mario Puig. I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/try.